Today, we have a tale of love, oppression, and cosmic powers beyond comprehension. We start the story with a simple message: wake up. And that is exactly what Elster does. Awaking on a ship, she finds a book detailing what spaceship she's on. Penrose-type vessels of the Yusan People's Navy are low-cost space exploration vessels deployed beyond the solar system's edge in search for planets and moons fit for habitation or rich in natural resources to support the continuous growth of our great nation. All Penrose vessels are piloted by a Gestalt scout officer supported by a land survey ship technician replica. This partner system of Gestalt replica cooperation has provided success in countless previous scout operations. Mutual control and support allow both the Gestalt officer and the technician replica to perform at their optimal capacity. Once the vessel is catapulted towards the edge of the solar system by an orbital mass driver, the pilot may adjust the course from the flight deck while the replica will take care of mechanical maintenance of the vessel. So, basically this was a deep space exploration vehicle piloted by just two beings. We did have some terminology in there that's going to come up a lot more as we progress, so I'll clear that up now. The word Gestalt means to bring things together and make them greater than the individual parts, and it's the name of humanity in this universe, or just in the Yusan nation, but we'll get into that later. Replicas are incredibly human-like androids, other than the feet, but we'll learn more about them as we progress. Making her way to the ship cabin, Elster discovers they aren't in space anymore and snow appears to be piling up around them. She grabs a faded photograph off of the control console. In a nearby side room, Elster also finds a note. Must have been from the other crew member, but it's covered in blood, so we can't really make out what it says right now. And heading into a room with a cryopod, Elster notices the button combination is on the back of the photograph she picked up earlier. This rewards her with a broken airlock key, but after some duct tape, it's good as new. Which means Elster can leave the ship. On the outside, it's a blizzard, but in the distance, Elster can see some kind of structure. It's a gate. It contains a hole leading down to a much smaller hole that Elster crawls through and ends up in some kind of office. The room has a number of weird things going on. There's a safe in the corner with 3 padlocks on it. The door's locked and the shelves are filled with banned books, including one in particular on the table that some of you may recognize. This is the first indication that we receive that something, otherworldly is going on. This isn't just sci-fi, this is going to be cosmic horror. It's The King in Yellow. Now, The King in Yellow is a real book you yourself could go out and read right now. It's by Robert W. Chambers. It's filled with short stories. The first few well, it's not just the first few. A couple of them are about a mysterious play that drives people insane just from reading its second act. Usually, if you read the first act, you're okay, but the human mind is just incapable of containing the truths of the cosmos that are in the second chapter. So a large theme for these books, these stories that are about the King in Yellow or the Yellow Sign, the people themselves becoming characters of the books, or taking on aspects of characters or their personality from the books. And this will be something we go over later on, as it's quite a big part of Signalis. This book itself was a big influence on Lovecraft and his style of writing, and the Yellow Sign was a big part of some of Lovecraft's own books, and honestly the greater Lovecraftian mythos as a whole, with newer writers including it as well. We'll discuss how that kind of adds up in the end, but for now, this is our indication of the fact that the horror on the cosmic scale may be happening. We can also take notice that this book has several seals binding it. After looking around this room, if we do pick up The King in Yellow, the nearby computer turns on, flashes through several warnings. There's images of Elster staring at the computer, a radio tower somewhere, and an island with a red door. Before the screen turns red, and we see the writing, "Great holes secretly are digged where Earth's pores ought to suffice." The end of this quote is, "And things have learnt to walk that ought to crawl. This is a quote from the ending of Lovecraft's first foray into cosmic horror writing, The Festival. As a brief overview of the story, one night a man is taken under the local church by the townsfolk, who all seem to be wearing masks, where he finds a great abyssal lake and something amorphously squatting in the dark before summoning a horde of horrible winged creatures that the townsfolk mount. This guy obviously isn't super happy about this fact, and while struggling to get away, he knocks one of the masks off, and it turns out that all the townsfolk are horrifying creatures from below the earth themselves too. Another sequence, we begin to see Elster's skin turn black, and by the end, nothing seems to be left of her, and we get our final message. Remember our promise, and once again, wake up. Coming to, we can see that Elster is in S23 Sierpinski on Leng, which is yet another Lovecraft / King in Yellow reference. The Plateau of Leng is referenced in the Lovecraft mythos quite often. In the Mountain of Madness, they believe they found the plateau while searching an outpost of the Elder Things. Just random side note. If you were to read a Lovecraft book, I would 100% always recommend The Mountains of Madness. It's personally my favorite Lovecraft book. That one, honestly, I would recommend that the most. Obviously, it has quite a lot of really good works. That one is my favorite. But the Mountains of Madness is never confirmed to be the actual plateau. We do, however, know that it exists in the Dreamlands in Lovecraft's mythos, which is a plane of existence that's accessible through mortal sleep, and it's highly debated whether it's part of Carcosa, the King in Yellow's country, land. It gets kind of weird as to whether like it's a dimension or a city that he has on a planet, but it's argued as to whether the Dreamlands are part of Carcosa or whether just Leng is part of Carcosa. There's a lot of arguments, but anyway, it's connected to Lovecraft. All of this will become coherent, I promise. Anyway, let's get back to the Resident Evil anime waifu edition. The halls, they look run down. They're filled with trash bags and bodies, and we get the opening chapter of Synchronicity. We find Elster, again, not in the office, but in a bathroom, staring at herself. She says that she came all this way to find someone. Checking her pocket, the photo is changed to a brown-haired girl called Alina Seo. On a nearby bench is a welcome pamphlet, which will kind of set the scene for some of this. So you've been selected or have been elected to be relocated by Aeon to S23 Sierpinski, located on Leng at the frontier of the solar system. S23 Sierpinski is the perfect place for a new beginning. At our prestigious Redacted vocational school facility, you will learn new skills to shape your future as a productive citizen of our wonderful nation. Here you will learn about mineral extraction, ore refinement, and munition production, helping the war against the remnants of the Empire. And of course, learning is not just about theory. Aeon lets you earn your share while practicing your new craft at the workplace. Concerned about your family, friends, or former colleagues? Ask a protector about our ration sharing plan. A portion of your ration marks will be sent to a beneficiary of your choice. I don't know about you guys, but that's giving me some weird vibes, but we'll find out for ourselves what this place is really like as we go in. So we finally get some direction as a note is taped to a keycard to a window telling Elster to head to classroom 4C. A poster on the wall both explains the gameplay function and expands on the world. The rule of 6 is that anyone can only carry 6 items on them at a time, as a private property is a privilege that can be taken away. So again, just putting more chains onto these people, they're only allowed to carry 6 things at any time, which is insane. Heading down a nearby hallway, Elster encounters her first body. It's a Yule unit with infected biocomponents bulging out of her. In the safe room, 2 notes talk about the safes around the building. The one in 4B is set to the default safe code, but from the rest of the note and the other nearby note, we can see that they rotate the save combinations and broadcast them over a radio system that one of the workers has worked out the broadcasting frequency for the codes. Elster finally meets someone else alive, but all they tell her is that she needs to leave the facility and save herself, But if she insists on progressing, then all the Gestalts were taken down to the mine, and she's going to need an admin card to use the elevator. Using a keycard she found near Star, Elster is able to access the observation room, where she finds what appears to be a guard station set up to observe the classroom. The fact she finds a pistol in one of the drawers has some rather sinister implications. She also grabs an aperture card. She can head back to a previous room to see what's on it. On the way though, the Yule unit that was decaying stands up and attacks Elster. What's going on here? Heading into the room with the aperture card, Elster is confronted by Issa Itu, who has just taken down something with just a knife. She mentions that neither of them belong there, but even though it's dangerous, she understands that Elster has to push on, like she does, before walking off. Looks like the aperture card was the instruction manual for the safe, so with the default code in hand, Elster backtracks to a previous classroom and obtains the classroom key. Walking into the classroom, Elster finds a hole in the floor. She doesn't know how far it goes or where it ends up, but she needs to go deeper to find the mine, so obviously it makes sense that she's gonna just jump into it. Luckily, everything is fine, but the corridors are filled with more of those bodies, and in a nearby room that appears to be a dormitory, a note talks about the protectors hiding something and changing the ration plans. Heading further ahead, looks like a door is locked, and Elster needs to find a key so she can pick the lock. In another room, Elster finds a page from Alina's diary. She's feeling a little lightheaded today. I hope it's not that new flu that seems to be going around. I can't afford to miss any more shifts. That Storch at the factory was chewing me out for what felt like hours for fainting at work last time I got a cold. I haven't seen Elster the last few days. I hope she's okay. More and more people go missing in the mine lately, including replicas. Not even the protectors seem to be safe. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a mysterious illness floating around, and people, even replicas, keep going missing. Not to mention the working conditions with her fainting actually resulting in being reprimanded. And the mention of Elster, because we arrived here on a ship, right? Elster finds an elevator that won't work without the correct keycard, which she doesn't have, but she does find the service hatch key. Heading back to the locked door, she can pick the lock, something that may or may not have taken me a ridiculous amount of time to get correct. So much time. Heading further in, Elster finds a kitchen out of a horror movie. There's some kind of pulsating flesh mass in the corner, and there's a chef hacking away at something that may have been human at some point. While fighting her way across the level, Elster finds Storch hiding in an office room. She's the only part of the protector unit left on this level, and she's staying put until she receives more orders. She mentions that the commander is currently sick, most likely with the same thing everyone else is. While exploring an office, we can find paperwork on why one of the Gestalts was sent here. Helen Song distributed flyers at her university and was sent to this place. All of the Gestalts in these files are being punished by having items confiscated from them, most of them arrested. Two stand out though. Julia was arrested because she was suspected of bioresonance, which apparently is just something they can arrest you for, and we'll get into what bioresonance is a little bit later on. And Alina had a butterfly box confiscated from her due to collapsing from exhaustion while working. So they punished her by taking away her items because she worked herself to the point of passing out. These guys definitely sound great. Elster then finds the interrogation room. It's a mess, and sat on the chair is a list of all the radio frequencies for the safe codes. Looks like they found the worker who'd worked out the radio codes. Along her way, Elster collected 2 halves of a key for the butterfly box. Upon opening, she finds the plate of eternity. It's a small stone that's got like a fleshy center and feels warm to the touch. And then upon picking it up, Elster's shown images of flesh pulsating in a wall it could kind of fit into, before she finds herself at a radio tower, somewhere completely different to where she just was. A note in the radio station is addressed to Iris. Dear Iris, I hope you and Ariane are both well. I spoke to the officials of Aeon and they agreed it would be best for Ariane to attend school in Sector C. I have a spare room she can stay in until she graduates. I know you two are inseparable, but we both know it is best for your daughter if she receives a normal education in the city. A nearby desk holds a radio receiver that allows Elster to unlock a door, and then return to where she picked up the plate. Somehow. But now she has the radio, which she can use to access the frequencies for the safe combinations, so it all works out. Having used the keycard she obtained from the safe, if Elster ascends to floor 1, she meets Isa yet again. Isa is looking for someone too. Her sister who left her because Isa couldn't look after herself. She doesn't look to be doing too badly to me though, with another one of the creatures lying in the corner. And again, this woman is doing all this with just a knife. And she is a gestalt. She's not a robot or anything. She's not a replica. So she's doing pretty well, honestly. If we then head down to floor 3 in the elevator, it shuts down, confiscating the card that Elsa had been using and leaving her stuck on floor 3, the hospital. Exactly where you want to be in some kind of contagious zombie outbreak. Seriously, why do people always, try escaping to the hospital? That is obviously the worst place to go. But anyway, in one of the hospital rooms, we find another one of Alina's diaries. She woke up in the hospital and everyone is acting strange. They won't even let her return to work, which is unheard of. And she overhears the staff saying they were running out of, staff because they keep going missing. In a nearby room, a report details a replica who has contracted the illness going around. Symptoms include hypotension, high fevers, dehydration, internal hemorrhaging, cognitive decline, alopecia, and para before the skin begins to peel away and their vision declines. Usually, at this stage, they also lose the ability to communicate, which is probably a blessing. This is lethal to gestalts, but replicas can survive, which explains the robot zombies wandering the halls. Which is terrifying. You made robot zombies. There's a Yule unit in a nearby room who hasn't been contaminated yet. They mostly keep repeating that they don't want to die, but they do importantly mention two things. Elster looks familiar to them, and the illness all began with the commander. Nearby, there is a strange room requiring different elemental keys. We need water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Wait, no, wrong series. Back to Signalis. In a bathroom that has seen much better days, Elster gets the pump key, which she uses to activate the pump and drain the lower area. Elster finds a VHS tape while exploring the hospital, and upon playing it, we see a white-haired woman before being transported to a train and receiving one of the keys that we need. Again, space is getting real weird. Or it's all in our heads. We'll get into it. After much back and forthing, Elster collects all the keycards to get into the locked room, where she can drop down and encounter this thing. After finally beating the weird tentacle vomit monster, Elster meets Adler, the administration unit under the commander, who then swiftly betrays Elster, throwing her down an elevator shaft. And then we get this quote. "It is calling to me from below, the song of a god that whispers to the sleeping. A dark sun setting over a black ocean, a red eye in the sky staring, unblinking forever, and deep below the earth awaits answers to questions yet unasked." Could we get more ominous? And then we get transported into a memory of Isa in school. She fell asleep, which is understandable. We all have been there. And she was waiting for Erica, but doesn't know if she left, so she's gonna go check out the library and see what's going on. Through a crack in the door, she sees a white-haired girl being bullied and abused by a bunch of other children in gas masks, which is terrifying. Gives Doctor Who vibes. That was an awful episode. Before waking up as Elster by an elevator with more LSTR unit bodies in it. Looks like they cushioned her fall enough for her to survive. Upon descending a level, Elster can see just how many other units Adler has shafted in this way. Pun intended. The pile of bodies fills the entire shaft for at least one level. Whilst exploring these new floors, Elster finds yet another hole to jump into. And then we see an interaction between Adler and Isa. She was looking for the commander, but Adler tells her he can help her before cornering her. In a room, Elster encounters something new. This creature uses some kind of psychic feedback to her, and the best way to deal with it is just to reverse its radio signal. Outside of the commander's room is a report on what a Falk unit is. These replicas were designed to be godlike beings. They use their bioresonance abilities to control a greater workforce of lower replicas. The Falk's bioresonance module allows them to bend the will of weaker minds, read their thoughts and emotions, and even manipulate objects from a distance. In the commander's room, we can actually find the Falk unit for this place, comatose. Still has the life signs, but shows no signs of waking. And in the corner, we can snoop on her diary because she's not going to stop us. I don't know how much longer I can go on. I do not want to live anymore as what I have become. The red eye beyond the gate showed me, touched me, poisoned me. It feels like my mind has been contaminated, defiled by another person's memory. I'm no longer fully myself anymore, but I've not fully become someone else either. I'm stuck here between her and me, with half-formed dreams and recollections penetrating my brain and tainting my very action. Who is she? Who is that white-haired girl? Why do I long to see her again? Why would she curse me like this? In the astrolabe room, we can see the layout of the solar system. Leng is the very edge of the system. There is an argument to be made that this is our solar system. They just changed the names. Although it's contested on what Leng is. It could be a moon, it could be Pluto, it could be some other tiny pseudo-planet on the edge of the system. Who knows? I do want to point out what Elster says about Veneta, though. It's an ocean world ravaged by war, and when she closes her eyes, she can hear the sound of the sea. In a hidden maintenance tunnel, Elster encounters stacks of paperwork and an unit. One of the papers is about the psychology of replicas. Each unit is based off of a Gestalt's memory template. Due to the wealth of private information they have about the Gestalt they took the template from, they can ensure optimal uniform development of each unit. Using certain activities or fetish items, they can keep replicas on the correct path. Inevitably, though, replicas will encounter new experiences, which can cause them to diverge, at which point they will break down. The Ara unit once again speaks like they know us, asking if we should be in the mine before fixing our light for us. I've skipped over some of the reports as there's a ton of them, and most don't apply to the main story but are flavouring for the world and trying to work out like the archetype. But this one is just sad and funny to me. So just like the arrow we found, in any facility they work in, they create tunnels in the walls and floors to hide in. And if they become unstable, this is where they'll retreat you, just like the arrow we met. I just imagine like any secure facility or whatever, and they just start building tunnels through the walls.
Hello. Hello, Jackie.
You never know if you're alone. At any point, they could be an Ara unit just staring at you through a vent. Who knows? They could be watching at all times. But it is also really sad that they, like cats, take themselves off there when they're getting close to their time. It's a bit sad and it's a bit funny. Now, the room with this report also has one on colibris. They are bioresonance capable and can even amplify a Falk unit's abilities. They work like a hive mind, being able to communicate among themselves instantly and extract information non-verbally. There's a note in this room written by one of the colibri, who is suspicious of Adler. Adler's hiding something. In his mind, he has memories of an LSTR unit working in the mine, but due to the commander getting sick, one was never brought in. In the library on this level, Elster meets a colibri who has become disconnected from the colibri hive mind. The others have all become infected and they sing different songs. She even wishes she'd been infected just so she wouldn't be alone anymore. They're not used to only hearing their own thoughts. This room also has a library book puzzle. One of your basic old school slide until contact puzzles, and when Elster finally solves it, it's once again the king in yellow, and upon opening, this time it's hollow with an astrolabe in it. In a room behind the locked eagle door, we can find Adler's diary. He's been having dreams of his Gestalt life, testing a white-haired girl with a tarot deck, presumably to check for bioresonance. He also started having memories of a replica unit that was never stationed on Sierpinski. That's the LSTI unit that was mentioned before by the colibri. Using the astrolabe, we can access another diary that he locked away in a safe. Adler seems to very quickly be falling into madness in this diary. Each entry has the same date. He doesn't remember even writing the entries from the days before and thinks his mind is degrading until he hears something calling from below. And now that Elster has his keycard, she can descend as well. Which brings us to another scene of Isa and Adler. It looks like Isa got the drop on Adler and he's gone now into a pit, which, knowing Elster, is probably where we're about to head to. But Elster finds herself needing to get through the mines, descending deeper and deeper until, yep, she just found the hole that Adler went down. And of course, she jumps into.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Which puts us on a beach reading mostly redacted ominous papers on the sand until we find a hand crushed by a rather fleshy looking rock. And then Elster wakes up in what appears to be a dungeon. Now this place is strange. The geometry is incorrect. Doors you'd think would bring you to one place will take you somewhere completely different. You could walk into a door on the left and you're going to walk out of a door on the left of a room. They don't make sense. And the architecture for this place is so dark. I mean, we've been through facilities with bodies piled up, but this is like a dungeon. There are bodies piled up here too, but there are torture rooms, blood vats, flesh pits. This place has everything you could want in a Lovecraftian dungeon. Elster, of course, upon hearing me say the words giant flesh pit, immediately decides that she needs to jump in that. At the bottom of the flesh pit, she finds Isa being attacked by something straight out of Silent Hill, an amalgam of replica bodies, and while Elster keeps it busy, Isa manages to get a shot off taking it out, but knocking herself out in the process. That is one powerful rifle. And this whole section has an insane amount of back and forth, so we'll be focusing on some of the more important parts. So in a room with a deathbed lies a note. A prison from which the only escape is death. Deep below the dreamer floats in the sea of flesh. The red eye birthing a new world from their dream for eternity, and each time the dreamer turns over in their sleep, the world turns over too, only flesh remains. We can even find a page from Alina's diary down here. She too remembers a different life and name, and her hair is slowly turning white. Is she becoming the girl we keep seeing? One of the puzzles requires you to collect several rings and place them on a statue of the Empress. The note that explains it goes as follows. On the first day she was crowned. On the longest day, nothing was done. On the next day she was wed. On the last day, she took her life. Once finishing this puzzle, it gives Elsa the knowledge plate, one of many that she collects through this area, needed to open a corrupted version of the element door from further up in the facility. Upon entering this door, it's a much fleshier version of the pit Elster descended at the very beginning, and then this scene plays out. Well, that was a trippy ending. Looks like the entire thing was futile as Elster has passed away. Or not. After relaunching the game, Elster is back on the Penrose, but things seem a bit different. The Penrose seems more lived in. It's still in space, and there's notes from Ariane about things like Elster not liking war movies, and most of the content they sent them with was just that. We even find out the whole point of the Penrose program was to go on a one-way trip to space to discover new habitable planets. In the mess hall, Elster finds a sealed letter and has the option to open it. Upon doing so, we find out it's the breakdown of LSTI units. They are adaptable and reliable as long as they are left alone. Sounds like me. It's best to interact with them as little as possible. The neural pattern they used was from a Venetan soldier, so avoiding any war references is for the best. Honestly, the list of things to avoid is pretty sad. Don't show her pictures, especially of soldiers. Don't show her movies or let her listen to music, and don't ever try to befriend her. Obviously, Ariane never opened this and didn't listen, so good for her. She even went so far as to adjust the length of the cycles to be in line with a Venetan day. Even mentioning Elster's accent is cute and that it reminds Ariane of her friends Issa and Eri. And then we finally meet Ariane, who immediately embraces Elster. Seems that she did more than just befriend Elster, and now they're in a relationship, putting some music on and dancing before falling asleep together. And then we're back with the previous Elster. Ariane appears and asks about their promise, and Elster somehow gains the energy to drag herself back into the Penrose, and somehow they're back in the snow again. But she is still severely damaged, until she finds the body of another LSTI unit and proceeds to be a total badass, tearing it apart for parts. Elster has a promise to keep, so she jumps down yet another flesh pit. Seriously, how many of these are there, and why is she so willing to jump into all of them? But now we're back on the beach. There are notes referencing Lovecraft's works, you know, the great holes in the earth and things that have learned to walk, what we were on about earlier. Before Elster awakes in the bathroom from the beginning, although everything seems a bit more fleshy than before. After navigating these fleshy holes, Elster encounters another goddamn pit. And of course, by this point, we know she's going to dive into it, which gives us this cutscene. Looks like Adler is becoming infected, and now so is Issa after her trip into the bowels of the mine, before Elster awakes in Rockfront Sector C. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem there are any friendly faces here either. A magazine Elster can find here talks about folklore on Rockfront and the process of pareidolia, which is the way the human brain picks up on patterns and imagines a face. Or when you wake up in the night and your clothes in the corner now look like a person ready to attack you. Rather than just the pile of clothes they are, people see a red eye watching them here, but it's really just a storm caused by the high pressure in the region. People cling to it though as a representation of the watchful eye of Big Brother. Breaking into an office, Elster finds some classified information on bioresonance. It helped the nation break free of the Empire with technologies like climaforming, induced gravity, and even the replicas themselves, but they don't understand it. Barely even understanding how it works for the processes they use it for, never mind its full capabilities or dangers. After obtaining a red floppy disk, seriously, like they can terraform planets, but they still use floppy disks. We can check the medical records. Both Erica and Isolde are in here, and so is Ariane. Ariane has a history of insomnia, bruising, and premature achromotrichia. I think that's how you say that. Basically, her hair is turning white early. Using Issa's birth date, we can get into the back door of the bookshop, where we can find the banned book Song of the Gods. It talks about the Song of Life, how some can hear it and even fear it. The emotional feedback loop from those around them becoming too much. But a gifted few, like the Empress, are able to not only hear the music, but control it, add in new symphonies and change reality. That's how the Empress created the replicas. Entering the front of the bookshop, we meet Issa. I hate this bit. She tried finding her sister, but her sister was nowhere to be found. And finally, the corruption has eaten away at her. Enough that she disintegrates. In the corner, we can see why she never found Erica. It's a shrine to the deceased. Both Erica and Issa's pictures are here, and to really drive home the point, we find the Death Tarot card lying just before them. Issa couldn't find her sister as she was looking in the wrong place. Maybe now she can rest and find her sister on the other side. In a hospital room, we can find a teacher's evaluation of Ariane. She calls her odd due to Ariane being brought up by a single mother and not a community effort. Ariane is obsessed with creative arts like paintings and music, and her friendship with the Venetian sisters has probably exposed her to the illegal writings that their parents sell. The teacher hopes that military service will beat the ideas out of Ariane. And she does say beat. Elster finds a complete version of the picture she was carrying from the beginning with a list of the platoon members. We know the one on the right is Alina, obviously. But the one on the left is left ambiguous. It's most likely Lilith, but we'll get into that later. There was a spy in Rockfront, keeping an eye on Ariane. The note they left behind states they knew she was bioresonant and they were getting out because it was too risky. In a room set aside, we can find the tarot card test that Adler mentioned in his diary, and a dream journal that talks about some horrifying stuff. A giant eye always watching, burning the world with its gaze, a great shadow living in the core of an ice planet, and shapeless flesh in the minds of Leng consuming everything. That last one was pretty prophetic, so are the other ones true too? Having solved the puzzle of the wall, the hall widens and Elster is able to travel to the room from the beginning again. Everything is the same, including the safe in the corner of the room, which we'll come back to. Picking up the King in Yellow once again, it says the last seal has been broken. It's finally time to go home. We were in Ariane's room, and exiting we see her aunt's apartment. Ariane signed up for the Penrose program, but was warned that if she wasn't accepted, she'd be sent to work at S23 Sierpinski. Ariane kept up correspondence with her mother, and in the letter she'd previously sent a picture she'd found from the war. It was of Alina Sio, and she looked very similar to Ariane, but her mum didn't know anyone in the family with that kind of name. After leaving her apartment, Elster finds a poem written by none other than the Commander Falk. A crashed ship, a strange gate, a hole in the ground. An island beyond reach, memories from other lives, dreams of suffering and loneliness. A promise, a search for someone lost. I saw her in the red, her emptiness waiting for me. We had made a promise. As the memories of a stranger rushed into my mind, I felt the borders of myself blur. Now I can no longer tell where Falk ends and Elster begins. The final door leads to Falk's room. Falk has become some kind of flesh god, using her bioresonance to throw spears around. After finally ramming enough spears into her head, Falk dies. Elster then takes down Adler as well, but suffers a wound to the eye, making it into the Penrose ship once again, although it looks different this time. The inside is full of garbage and in a state of disrepair. Elster finds some of Ariane's diaries. She left because she was an outcast, she didn't fit in, and everyone hated her. At least out here in the depths of space, she could be free. In the next room, Elster finds the Penrose Phase 3 briefing. At 3,000 cycles, the replica and ship were going to start breaking down, with radiation leakage becoming a problem. It's recommended that they don't prolong their suffering and have their replica end them before it too breaks down. The notes we find through this section, remnants of Ariane's diaries, talk about how she longs for wind, to be out of this metal tomb where she's slowly dying from the radiation. She's scared that one day one of them isn't going to wake up. In the bedroom, we find out she was right to worry. Elster's body is here, she couldn't keep her promise and she fell ill, passing away. But then where is Ariane? That was a horribly depressing ending, and it actually is the ending this time. Ariane doesn't remember the promise, and Elsa just wants to be next to her before passing away, becoming the Elster unit that she actually ripped the parts off of earlier. Now, this isn't the only ending. It's heavily weighted so that you get this ending the first time, as the endings are based more on your actions through the game than any other active choice or collectibles, at least for the other two regular endings. It's based on things like how many times you died, how long it took you to complete the game, how many times you walked up to locked doors, very archaic, weird things like that. If you get the leave ending though, Elster is unwilling to face Ariane and simply just leaves before dying on the planet's surface. And in the promise ending, Ariane does remember Elster and their promise, and Elster carries out the promise, killing Ariane before she passes away next to her. But finally, do you remember that safe in Ariane's room? Has it been bugging you? Well, I mentioned it at the very beginning of the game, and we encountered it again recently. Well, if you collect several keys throughout the game that required a lot of work, you can unlock it. Inside, there are some white lilies, and upon picking them up, Elster is seen placing them at a ritual site, with 5 other dead LSTR units surrounding pillars, and at the center is a glowing relic. We then see Elster and Ariane dancing inside the Penrose as a giant red eye looks on from above. To even begin untangling this cosmic knot of a story, we need to do some world building. So we're going to go back in time. Way back at some point in time. The Empress rose to power using her bioresonance on the planet of Veneta, the homeworld of humanity. She created the Yusan Empire. She united the human race and expanded further into the solar system, before building her floating palace upon Buyan. She was the first to breathe life into the active servants as well, creating the replicas. Side note, Buyan is a mythical island in Russian folklore where the gods reside. Being that the Empress became a fairly mythical character herself, it's a fitting name for the planet she resides on. We don't know much more about her other than what we can glean from the knowledge puzzle. The Empress was crowned, married, and then took her own life. This could have been over a full lifespan for all we know. Sometime after the passing of the Empress, a rift in the Empire formed and the nation of Yusan rebelled against the Empire. This resulted in a war spanning across the entire solar system. We don't see much of the Empire, but we do get an inside look into the nation, and it's not pretty. It's highly authoritarian, with the populace being controlled through every method available. Even changing the name of the race to Gestalt is to slowly imbue into their mind that they are part of a greater whole, just a cog in the machine that keeps everything running. The arts and creativity are looked down upon as not being productive, and people are dragged into interrogation rooms, having their mind assaulted by bioresonant capable replicas until they admit to infractions, no matter how small. Depending on what they did, they would be sent to rehabilitation camps like Sierpinski to work until they had paid their debt to society, however imagined it was. Into this world of war and stifling control, Ariane Young would be born on the planet of Leng. Her mother Iris was a radio officer living an isolated life with Ariane. Due to this, Ariane didn't develop social skills or become indoctrinated at a young age, something her mother may have even wanted as she herself read banned literature. Her aunt wasn't happy with how isolated her life was, not to mention the lack of an education, and so she got the authorities involved to make Ariane's mother send her to Rockfront to live with her and actually attend a school. Now, imagine for a moment you're moving schools and you have that pit in your stomach. It's the anxiety of having to meet new people, fit into a new place, and not knowing what to expect. Now, imagine that you've never actually interacted with anyone apart from your mother in that entire time. And when you get there, you aren't a cookie-cutter person like everybody else is. Everyone else is indoctrinated to think and feel a certain way, and you have never had that. Ariane didn't have any social skills. She'd only really ever had contact with her mother. She hadn't even been to a school before. And fitting in, she was a free thinker, someone who enjoyed art and fiction, something that was actively discouraged. Her teachers even comment on it, hoping that the late military service will fix her. So when the bullying starts, the teachers don't do anything. They see it as society correcting itself. Bear in mind that for the slightest misstep when they were older, they could be punished with reduced rations or even being sent to a correctional camp. This was all compounded by Ariane's burgeoning bioresonant capabilities. I mentioned bioresonance before with the Empress and throughout the game, but let's break it down before we go any further. In this universe, everything is connected by a song. The very underpinnings of reality are woven into this melody, and some of them, like your everyday psychics, are able to hear the faintest hint of this melody, giving them insights into the events around them. Maybe they can see the glimpse of someone's future, or read another person's thoughts. Maybe it just helps them read body language better, or people's emotions. But then there are those who are gifted with the ability to affect the song itself, like the Empress, who single-handedly propelled humanity to new heights, from being able to climb a foreign planet, which is basically terraforming, to space travel and the creation of replicas. Bioresonance is not fully understood. Honestly, it's barely understood at all, and humanity would never use something we don't really understand, right? The nation uses it as yet another method of controlling the population. They have two units that are particularly important in this regard, the Falk and Colibri. I hate that word. At the very top of the replicas stands the prototype Falk. They have a new, more powerful bioresonant chip, giving them not just the ability to control those around them, but even to use telekinesis. The Colibri are noted as being the most capable users of bioresonance. They can detect the emotions of those around them and even read memories, making them perfect for interrogation or monitoring the other replicas. They are capable of communicating together non-verbally by sharing thoughts and senses like a hive mind. They can even link up and act as a booster for the power of the Falk, increasing the Falk's capabilities. Now, these are obviously pretty miraculous abilities compared to what we can do in our reality. But it's not terraforming a planet and being able to control some people under you wouldn't mean you could push humanity to new heights, expanding through the entire solar system. The Empress's power was much more advanced than this, but she's gone and the only research we see is from the nation, enemies of the Empire. So we return to Ariane, an outcast, not only because of her lack of sociability and her more free nature, but also because she is subconsciously taking in all the negative emotions of those around her. While being bullied in the library, something that happens often, and even leaves her needing medical attention on occasion, Erika Itao saves her, something that Issa Itao regrets to this day. One of the students bullying Ariane in that scene is wearing a sash. What we can do is take that to mean that that student was of a higher standing, and another student standing up to her while she was dispensing behavioral corrections would not go well for that student standing up to her. Due to the rescue, Ariane became close friends with Issa and Eri, even working part-time in their parents' shop. Eventually, though, the target Erica painted on herself resulted in her being sent off to a correctional facility, and her family was told that she died. While this was going on, a spy infiltrated the area and became terrified of Ariane's bioresonance abilities, which alerted Aeon to her capabilities. They didn't reveal them to her, but tested her in various ways, such as getting her to read tarot. Ariane's interest in the arts didn't diminish much due to the indoctrination, and in fact she became more interested in painting, something one of her teachers couldn't stand, and she recommended military service to beat the creativity out of her. She was taken into the military and trained to be a radio officer like her mother, but she was unhappy with this posting, wanting to be herself. Then she saw the Penrose program, an opportunity to go out into space and just be away from the suffocating pressure of society. Whilst on the trip, despite orders otherwise, Ariane and her LSTR unit grew close, with Ariane committing forbidden acts such as letting Elster listen to music. Eventually they grew closer and started a relationship, something that would have never been allowed as it would take a replica's experience into new territory. Which takes us back to the photo of the soldiers. The fact that Ariane so closely resembled the soldier next to the Gestalt that became Elster implies that those soldiers had a relationship, which is why Elster didn't break down from diverging so far from her original imprint. Although whether the divergence would actually cause a breakdown might just be another means of control by the nation. After 3,000 cycles, the Penrose entered stage 3 of the program. They hadn't discovered any planetoids in the depths of space, and the spaceship and Elster would soon begin to break down. Not wanting to alarm Elster, Ariane kept this to herself and tried to keep everything normal, to carry on living the happiness that they'd both found together in a universe so dead set on oppressing everyone and everything. Unfortunately, the reactor did begin to break down, flooding the ship with radiation. Ariane's hair and teeth began to fall out, and as a last-ditch effort to save her, Elster placed her in the cryopod, promising that she'll take her out if she can't repair the damage. Before she could though, Elster broke down. The replica was only meant to last for the 3,000 cycles, and the radiation was breaking her down as well. Which is where the normal, sane story ends, with them drifting in space, Ariane still in stasis and Elster broken down. But obviously, that's not where it ends. On Sierpinski, a mining correctional facility, they did as all dwarves do, and dug too deep, discovering a gate to nowhere down in the depths. Now, Ariane is the most powerful bioresonant being since the Emperor, someone who could terraform entire planets. Ariane's abilities reached out across space and were amplified by the gate. Ariane isn't conscious for this and isn't even fully aware of what is happening or her abilities. She just wants Elster to uphold her promise. She's scared and in pain. She just wants it to end. She's also not completely coherent. Falk at this time is investigating the gate and is imprinted with Elster's memories before falling into a coma, and then the cycle repeats, trapping everyone in the same day over and over again, with some people like Adler being able to notice something is happening. LSTR units with Elster's memories keep trying to find Ariane, and every time they interact with the gate, reality is corrupted just that little bit more. Adler tries to stop them. He fills an entire elevator shaft with their bodies, but Ariane wants Elster to get to her, so nothing is going to stop that. Ariane's memories imprint on reality, bringing Isa, one of her only friends ever, into the loop, even though she's already dead. Isa is doomed to attempt an impossible task, searching for a sister who's already gone. And this loop keeps repeating. Elster even takes the armor off of her own body that she'll leave there later on, so things definitely get very weird and time loopy. Although, eventually, Elster does get to Ariane, and one of the 4 endings take place. Some of them just going back into the loop, like, for example, Leave, where she leaves and dies, and then another LSTR unit takes over Elster's personality. The secret one is the best/worst ending, in my opinion. The two of them get a happy ending. They get to dance together and spend their time together alone finally, Elster and Ariane. But at what cost? They finally get peace, but the Eldritch Eye is watching over everything. See, the gate is a conduit for Ariane, but it's also the Eldritch power of something else. Obviously, the King in Yellow jumps to mind, as his book is so prevalent, and there's a very obvious comparison between how the characters in those stories become the characters they read about, and how everyone in Signalis begins to have themselves overwritten by other characters that Ariane knows of. The book was banned, but Ariane had access to banned literature as a child, and even mentions the book itself being available at the store at one point. The Empress also at one point said her abilities were granted by a miracle from space. Maybe she made a deal with the King in Yellow, and maybe Ariane did as well without knowing it, or Ariane tapping into the gate itself was all the consent that the King needed. That's just an overview of Signalis. There's plenty more here to pick apart, so let me know your theories, what you think about down below. Any other games you want me to look into? Also, the Discord will be down below. I'd love it if you guys joined. I'm trying to put together like a community of other lore whores because I just enjoy talking about this stuff and would love to have people to talk about it with. But that's it for this one. I'll catch you all in the next one.